Thanks for listening to the Chiro Hacker Lab podcast, where Dr. Tirado is giving doctors instant access to the tools and tips to hack their practices to success. So if you're wondering whether you have what it takes to become a chiro hacker, we invite you to visit us at www.chirohackerlabs.com.
Hey guys, Dr. Jason Tirado. We are back today. What I want to do today actually is I do want to talk to you guys about, why chiropractic, what are the reasons why chiropractic practices fail? Because I find in coaching doctors that a lot of these doctors that do fail or are failing and come to me kind of all have the same things going on. The bottom line is chiropractic practice is a business. And I know that, look, we get into chiropractic for all different reasons, right? But the main reason is we get into it to help everybody. And but the reality is it's a business, make no mistake. And so when chiropractors fail, it's not necessarily because they don't fail because they're burned out. They don't fail because they have no money, or they don't really fail because they're crappy doctors. But it's never really because they run out of money. It's really they fail. And the reason why I say that is because if you look in all these entrepreneurial magazines and Forbes magazines, they'll always say lack of sufficient capital. Like, that is a problem, right? You should have enough money. But the reason why chiropractors literally fail in practice isn't because they just don't have any money whatsoever. It's usually because, and almost always, because they just don't know how to run a business. Typically, if you ask a chiropractor why they failed in practice, they'll typically tell you, well, I didn't have any, I had a lack of new patients. Like everybody almost always thinks that it's a lack of new patients, right? And to be quite frank with you, that's just a bunch of crap, because that's not even half the problem. That's only scratching the surface. So, I mean, there are a lot of chiropractic practices or doctors that fail. They don't even know why they failed. They just say, well, there's not enough new patients. No, I couldn't get enough patients. And the reality is that with those doctors that failed, that still believe that that's the problem, I don't care. No matter how many new patients, you could give that doctor new patients. Doctors like that, can get tons of new patients, and they're still going to end up failing in practice. There's no amount of new patients that's going to be able to fix a doctor who does not know how to run a business. Women, male or female, it does not matter. In my particular situation, I was fortunate. My father was a nightclub owner, and I helped him run his business when I was younger. I was able to develop some form of a business acumen before I was 18 years old. I mean, that's just what you did in my family. I'm convinced that most of the chiropractors that fail in practice, it's because just lack of good business acumen. They really don't have business sense. And it's not like they're teaching that in school. I'm really convinced that if every single chiropractor in the world magically got 50 to 100, to 100 new patients, like every single month, every single year, they would still go out of business because they don't have any business savvy or business acumen. Until they start teaching business, acumen in chiropractic colleges, the default rate in chiropractic, with loans is going to be very, very high. Let's face it, our profession in that particular sense, it has a problem. And that problem is going to continue for a long time unless it's fixed. In our particular practice, we have a product that the public believes is skeptical, is uncertain, may not even be proven by science. And your typical patient that goes to a chiropractor is going to be somewhat skeptical. And so I'm not going to tell you that the market, the people out there don't want our product. A lot of them don't. A lot of them, do not believe in using chiropractors. They'd rather go to a medical doctor before they go to a chiropractor. And I mean, let's face it, nobody really wants to go to a chiropractor, right? But when someone's in pain, they're not always going to go to a chiropractor first. I mean, and that's the reality. Like, that's just what it is. I didn't make that up. That's just the statistics. So my question for you is, like, what are you going to do about it, right? Are you going to be like most chiropractors that are just going to kind of continue to try to convince the market, that that chiropractic is not about pain relief, that it's about wellness, that it's about long-term care. Because I guarantee even the philosophical chiropractors out there, the straight chiropractors out there, even those doctors that are out there, if they weren't taking patients that were complaining of back pain, they'd be broke. A lot of people in our profession want you to believe that we are here to go out there and sell wellness. And whenever you go to seminars where they are telling us to sell wellness, to talk about subluxation, to be philosophically based, that's all great, but that's only what we want to hear. That's not necessarily what the public wants to hear. So what happens is when we get out of these seminars or even out of school, we go to our practice, let's say philosophically based schools, we go to our practice and we try to sell philosophy, subluxation-based chiropractic, long-term care. The market doesn't want to hear that. Really, they don't want to hear that. They want to hear about neck and back. Now, I'm not saying that you should never talk that way to your patients, right? But I'm saying is in the very beginning, that wouldn't be wise to start talking that way to your patients until they become your patients and know, like, and trust you, and then you can start educating them about what it is that you want them to learn about chiropractic philosophy and principles. So for now, my suggestion is stop trying to sell that because it's just not working. It's not working for you and it's not working for the profession as a whole, and it's creating a big question mark in our profession, and it's causing, and look, the statistics show that a lot of chiropractic practices are failing. Right? So that's one of the reasons why people actually do fail in practice. There's a lot to running a business. There's a lot to running a business. And once you know what your market wants and you start giving it to them, that's when your business can start taking off. Here's a couple of things I want to tell you, that a couple of the reasons that I have seen why chiropractic practices fail. This is what I've seen in doctors that I've seen throughout the years. And the number one is a lot of doctors will think that, they can't afford to have proper staffing. They can't even have a CA. I mean, a lot of chiropractors don't work with employees. That's very, very common in our profession. It's the doctor and there's no other employee inside the office. I have nothing against those doctors. I have a great friend that has no employees. He's in his office. He's been there for 20 years working by himself. He refuses to get another employee. But that's one of the number one things that I see when struggling chiropractors have a lot in common. They don't want to get employees. And I think that they focus far too much on things that have happened in the past, or they'll focus on things that they think are going to take place in the future, but they never really are working in the moment. That's what I find. I think that most of these chiropractors that have failed have had terrible practice names that do not speak to the market. The message that they're conveying is completely wrong. It's an accurate chiropractic. It's an above, down, inside, and out chiropractic, aligned chiropractic. Names like this do more to hurt your practice than help your practice. And look, those are passionate doctors. I get it. I really do. Does not speak to the public. I think that a lot of chiropractors that have failed in practice, they don't act, they don't speak, they don't dress, they don't even think as successful doctors. They just don't. They complain all day long. These types of doctors typically don't like change. I don't think these types of chiropractors are grateful enough for what they have. I don't think they show grateful. I don't think they show how grateful they are for the things that they've gotten, for things like referrals that come to their office. I don't think that they value their time properly. If they don't value their own time, then how do they value somebody else's time? I think that's a problem. I think that these doctors are they're afraid of money. They're afraid of making money, and I think they're afraid of spending money. Right? They won't write the check. Maybe they've tried coaching and they've spent maybe $5,000 early on, or $10,000 or $15,000 early on in their careers. It didn't do anything for them. And so now they don't want to spend $1,500, $2,000 a month on proper coaching that can literally help them double their practice. I think that a lot of these doctors, they think that they want control, but they're not willing to take any responsibility for the actions and the results that they're getting inside their practice. I know that's really, really harsh, but that's the truth. Before I take on a coaching client, I do a strategy session. I do an interview. And I try to see whether or not we're a good fit. When I begin to coach somebody and they're paying me, I don't have long-term contracts. I go month to month. And so that means that if I'm not producing at the end of the month, you're firing me. At least that's what you should be doing. If any consultant is working for you and they're not providing you with proper information, or they're not getting what you should be getting out of it, you should fire them. So I find that when I do these strategy sessions, I sort of weed out doctors that I don't feel are a good fit. And I find that when doctors aren't taking responsibility or don't want to take responsibility for their practices, they've got a victim attitude rather than being a victor. That's not a client that I would take, because a chiropractor like that is going to fail until they change their mindset. Now, I'm not saying that's the only thing that they should change in practice. There's a whole lot of other things, but their mindset is important. And if they're not willing to make that change, then that practice is certainly going to fail. It's just a matter of time. I think that those types of doctors, they create a persona that makes them feel good about themselves and less intimidated by others, but it does nothing to build their success in their practice or in their life. That's a problem. I don't think that doctors like that are results driven. And in this profession, you've got to be results driven. You've got to set some goals, realistic goals, attainable goals. You have to be results driven, and you have to look at those, and you have to be able to run your practice as almost as if you're steering a ship, meaning you're going to steer your ship. There's going to be a bump there. You're going to turn. You make a little iteration, right? You turn, and then you start steering the ship again. Oh, there's a little bump. You iterate, you turn again. All these iterations in practice until you finally get to the goal where you want to go to in practice. A lot of doctors aren't willing to change that way. They're not willing to shift. I know a lot of doctors that are personal injury practitioners. It's all they know is personal injury. Suddenly, the fee schedules drop out and they stop personal injury in their state, or they cut it in half. It's the same thing with doctors that were heavily into taking Blue Cross Blue Shield in our state. They were typically getting paid $150 a visit, and then suddenly Blue Cross said, we don't care if you're in-network or out-of-network, we're only going to pay you $40. So immediately their incomes were cut by 60%. Iterate and go do something else. But you know what? A lot of doctors would rather just become victimized by something like that rather than making a change and improving their practice. Practices like that fail. You've got to be able to make iterations in your practice to be able to get to the final outcome, which is your goal. I think that a lot of these doctors, in addition to not having the proper mindset, I don't even think that these doctors dress appropriately in their practice. White lab coat, shirt, tie, things like that. And then if you look at those practices, a lot of times those practices, they've got all the patient education posters on the wall, all the things that the chiropractor would buy over at a seminar that a chiropractor would love to see on the wall, but it's nothing that a patient wants to see on their walls. That's what I typically find. I think I might have shot off maybe, 10, 15 reasons why chiropractic practices fail in practice. Those are really common. Those are so, if you find that you're doing any of those things in your practice, if you find that you personally are doing, if you are in any one of those categories that I just mentioned for practices that are typically struggling, then just do the opposite, right? It really just do the opposite. So look, I'm Dr. Jason Tirado. I'm going to get going. I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful for letting me share this information with you. I hope everybody stays happy and healthy. I'm Dr. Tirado. If you need any help growing your practice, by all means, shoot me a message below and I will get back to you. We can set up a time to chat. If not, you can go to chirohackerlab.com, take a look at the rest of the information that I have. That's about it, guys. I'm Dr. Tirado. Take care. Have a great day.